what I would advise you to do is take one step at a time towards that dream. People want quick money, people want quick things, and people want everything now. But you've got to build the foundations and build. If you think of an idea, let it scare you. It should be scary, otherwise you're just motoring along, just doing your thing every single day.
Welcome to A Beginner's Guide to Being a Grown-Up. I'm Sam, and this is my passion project podcast, interviewing really interesting people about their lives. And today I am really excited to have Paul Sesay with us. He is our first man, so thank you, Paul, for being brave and being the first man to come and do the podcast. So a little bit about Paul before we get into it. Paul is the founder and CEO of Inclusive Companies Limited and the National Diversity Awards, the Inclusive Top 50 UK Employers List, and the Inclusive Awards. So from that list, it won't surprise you that he is a prominent figure in diversity, inclusion and equality sector, and has collaborated across the world with big organisations enhancing D&I initiatives, and also works across diverse communities throughout the UK. His absolute personal mission is to inspire and support individuals and groups from diverse backgrounds and empower underprivileged communities from across the nation to achieve their full potential. So Paul, that's no small mission. So welcome. I want to kick off with, tell me a little bit about that journey for you into adulthood, from childhood into adulthood, and the things that formed you.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Sam, for having me on this amazing podcast. I think it's a great subject as well. My name is Paul Sesay, and as you alluded to, I've achieved so much in my life that I never thought I would achieve, and it goes back to resilience from when I was a child. I think if I revert back to when I was first born, if you don't mind, Sam, I was born. I was a couple night stands between a white mother in Leeds and my black father, who was also a bus driver in Leeds. And I had siblings that was younger than me, older than me, should I say. As soon as I was born, I was given up for adoption simply because of the colour of my skin. And I went to various foster homes and children's homes and things like that. And it was quite a harrowing experience. I think back to when I was very first born, I was going to be fostered by and adopted by a black family, and my mother couldn't sign the adoption papers. So then I went through the foster care system, and then I ended up with a really nice family in Wakefield, that, a white family that, just fostering because they wanted to. They had 2 kids of their own, and I was really settled there. And a couple of years down the line, my real mother met this new guy who was my stepfather. Well, not stepfather, I wasn't there long enough, but he would have been my stepfather. And he must have got into a head that you've got a child out there, you really need to be getting in contact again. So they got in contact with social services and basically said, can we have Paul back? I was age 6 at this point. And obviously, as a child, you want to know who your real mother is. You want to be part of that. But it ended up being quite a bad mistake. Anyway, so I left that family, a really nice family in Wakefield, to go back to my real mother's. But my real mother wasn't really ready to have me. She wasn't ready to accept a black child into her white family. So she went to the schools and said, oh no, this is my foster child. She went to everybody, this is my foster child. She kept me off school quite a lot of the times. And even when they went out, maybe went to the caravan and out or various functions, I was left in the caravan or left in the house just to by myself because she didn't want to face up to the realities of having a black child. And actually treated me quite badly, beaten up and, ostracised. And, the other siblings, the 2 older siblings that I had, was treated completely different to what I was. So at a very young age, I quickly knew that I was very different to, most kids that was out there, and treated very differently. And it could have sent me 2 different ways. Could have gone crazy or you can make you stronger as a person. Anyway, that only lasted around 6 months, and my mother decided, no, I don't want him, and then off I popped to another foster family that was absolutely horrendous. I don't really tell this story this much, so you're very honoured, but I went to a foster family where basically later on the guy was a convicted paedophile. and he got arrested, and he's done prison time for paedophilia. Ironically, he didn't do kind of anything to me sexually, but his son that he had actually did as well. So, and that was a harrowing time. The mother didn't like me. They was just doing it for money as well. So back in the day, there wasn't as much kind of what's the word? Protocol with regards to social services, and so they were left to it, and they was getting lots of money for fostering me, but then I had to go to jumble sales and buy my own clothes, and I was doing a paper round just to get some money, and they used to take the money off me, and I had to buy my own cereal, and it was just a crazy time. And I was with them for quite a while, and then I was trying to say to social services, I really don't like it here, but they would be dead nice just before social services came there. So you know, as a 7-8-year-old, you'd be like, well, why do you want to move? And like, he couldn't quite think, he can't articulate self as much then. Anyway, so I stayed there for quite a few years, and then something happened, and I was shipped out again and went through some foster homes and some other foster families throughout my childhood. But at the age of 15, basically I was in a hostel with nobody around in a black area, which was eye-opening for me and really, really nice in a way. But because for the first time in my life, I really didn't have anybody that was telling me what to do or making me feel like I was, you know, somehow inferior in life. So, and when I moved to Chapeltown in Leeds, it was, like I say, it was the black area, and it wasn't at that time the best area. There's not a lot of opportunities for people in Leeds. You know, it was hard to get a job in the council, and people had no aspirations. It was always about stuck in their own kind of postcode. And I ended up being a bit of a bad boy, if I'm honest, Sam. But the people around me were like family as well. So for the first time, I was accepted. For the first time, I was, you know, happy in myself and get to know myself, who I was. And it was a good time, but also, you know, I knew right from wrong. And so I decided from 15, so when I got a flat, to 17, that I'd say, no, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to get a job. I want to, you know, be a proper person, you know, a grown-up adult, should I say. And so I started to try to find jobs whilst you know, doing certain stuff that I was doing. At the age of 19, doing really good stuff, worked in a pizza restaurant, and it wasn't much now, but it was a pizza restaurant. It was great. I was happy. I was earning money, but decided at the age of 19, do you know what? Leeds has not really offered me that much. I'm going to just upshift, and I'm going to go to Liverpool. So I ended up going to Cream, which is a nightclub in Liverpool called The Nation. Cream was massive back in the day. I went there for a day, for a night out with my friends, and I came back the next day and moved there. I had £25 in my pocket and the clothes, that was it. I basically didn't know no one, had no family there, and it was a real risk for me as a person. But on the first night that I was there, I met this guy called Kevin, who met this guy called James, who's a good friend with this guy called James Class, and he took me under his wing. Exactly when I first got there, he was a radio DJ for BBC Radio Merseyside. He was also an MC in nightclubs. He was a black guy from the West Indies, very flamboyant, absolutely amazing person. And he didn't have to take me under his wing. He used to call me his apprentice. So often he pops down to BBC Radio Merseyside, and he used to just sit me there, and this is what I do, and then take me to the nightclubs, and he used to MC into the nightclubs and say, you have a go. So then I started MCing, getting paid to MCing in these nightclubs, and it was such a massive change in my life from not being accepted, having low self-esteem, to someone actually just saying, do you know what? You know, you've got something in you. You're an amazing person. You're a talented person. And sat down and actually believed in you. So then I started MCing in these clubs, getting paid in front of all these people, MCing. It was just an amazing time for me. And that was a catalyst for change for me. And when I moved to Liverpool, I thought, okay, I'm going to do things properly. I could have easily gone into the street life and because I moved to Toxteth and lots of people was asking me, can you take this package? Do you want to do this? And I was a new face in the area. But I decided I just didn't want to. I also got offered a job by a security firm that was paying £1 an hour. Part-time was 60 hours a week for £1 an hour, and £1.25 if you want to do 120 hours a week. I thought, I'm not doing that either. So, yeah. Got a job in JD, got sacked. Got a job in Asda, got sacked from there. For no reason. There was actually a bit of bias in the Asda one, but I won't go into that one too much. But I'm glad these things happen because, those things made me, jump up and find out what I really want to do. So from there, and I'll stop in a minute, but from there, I managed to get a job in sales in an organisation called Diverse Liverpool magazine. It wasn't that at first. It kind of transpired into that. It was like a telesales company. And I really, really loved, just talking to people on the phone. Yeah, I loved, basically, getting that sale and the buzz of the sale. And I ended up being really, really good at it. By far the best salesperson that they'd ever have. And I was getting more sales than the whole team combined. And that was a big catalyst for me as well. So, yeah. My childhood was harrowing. I went through the journey of foster care, sexual abuse, and various other things like that, but it definitely made me the person I am today.
Thank you for sharing that, Paul. That's obviously a really personal journey. I'm really interested that you clearly had very early on a sense of right and wrong, which, given what you've said about your childhood, is interesting that was clearly very inherent in you. And also this bravery of just going, do you know what? I'm just going to move.
Yeah.
I'm just going to up and go and see what happens. And then that serendipity of meeting the person who's going to help you to really kind of feel like you belonged. And that belonging piece, I know, is so important to you. And I know that's a lot of what drives what you do for inclusive companies as well.
Yeah.
If we think back to that 18-year-old self, what would they recognise in you today? So as you've gone through that journey and you've grown as an adult, if your 18-year-old self could meet you today, what would they recognise?
I think they recognise that throughout all the rejection I had in my childhood, and I had so much rejection from many people, and you go through the foster care system, you don't really belong to anyone. You go to people's houses, no pictures of you up in the wall, and there might be just little things, but they really hurt. Do you know what I mean? Like they really get to people from foster care or from adoptive kind of parents if you're not kind of recognised in that way. And I think if I look back. And my 18-year-old self would look back at me and they'd say, all that rejection made you a stronger person. It made you resilient. Do you know what I mean? It made me the person I am today. I could have quite easily gone down the other road or maybe taken drugs or just not caring about anything in life really and just going down a completely different road, which I did for a time. And I think they would recognise that it's just the resilience and the strength that you had to get through your childhood. But I'll tell you one thing, Sam, one thing that did get me through my childhood is that even though I was going through the most horrendous time, I always thought there's somebody worse off than me. And that's what I thought throughout my childhood. So, at the time in the 80s, there was, the famine in Ethiopia and there was wars going on. And I was seeing pictures of these kids that were just utterly, starving to death. And I thought to myself, well, I'm not going through that, so my life is not that bad. So that's what got me the resilience to carry on and saying, well, life could be actually worse than I'm actually going through at the time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's what my 18-year-old self would see.
So here's my next question then. What would your 18-year-old self, given the life experience you'd had up until 18, still in Leeds at 18, hadn't made that big move, what would they be absolutely amazed by if they met you now?
Gosh, everything. Like, I sometimes I'm amazed. I'm quite a bit older now. I'm amazed at what I do. Kensington Palace, I've been invited to 10 Downing Street, to advise about communities and how to engage with communities. It's like, I liaise with CEOs and some of the biggest companies in the world. My 18-year-old self was a lost child that that didn't have nobody. No, you know, I spent Christmases and birthdays by myself at that age, looking out at Christmas and going, no, nobody cares about me. Trust me, it's the worst, loneliest place I was at that age. And they'll be amazed at what I've turned around. I've got a beautiful family, I've got beautiful people and beautiful friends like yourself, Sam, around, and you know, I feel totally blessed by what I have, and I want to inspire others to sit there and say, well, look what I've come through. If I can do that, so can you. There's no difference between me and you. Turn that negativity into resilience, and there's no, don't limit yourself, basically. Yeah, so they would be absolutely amazed. that won't believe it. They wouldn't believe it if I told them.
They'd be like, that's not me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's amazing, isn't it? That you've had such a massive journey since that age. And we've talked a bit about, and you've told me a bit about those struggles that kind of gave you that resilience and kind of made you who you are. And I think clearly very inherent in you is that right from wrong. I'm really interested by the fact that you were like, no matter how hard your life was, you know, sat on your own at Christmas, no one to love you, but your view was still, but someone else is worse off than me. And I don't think a lot of people would think that at that point. What was your, do you have like an example of like a big experience of rejection that really made you kind of be who you are today?
Gosh, that's good. You got me going there, Sam, if I'm honest. I think that horrible family that I was with, I think when you're in foster care and well, there's two things. My mother rejected me. That was just my own mother rejecting you as well twice. It was a real kick in the teeth for me. You know, it was just horrendous. But then going through that to another horrible foster family that doesn't care about you. But when someone doesn't care about, and when you're a child, all you want is the love from that family. Do you know what I mean? You don't want anything else, but you just want to change the situation that's there. And to find that, you know, no matter what you do and what you try, that's never going to happen. And it was actually really negative towards me all the time. And so the rejection from them as well through a number of years was really harrowing. But actually, when I left them and I went to, you know, the children's homes, it was actually a relief. If that makes sense, like there's nobody controlling me, there's nobody rejecting me no more. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like I can be me and, you know, and fathom life for me rather than being told you're just nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get that completely. And in terms of, so what I'm fascinated by now is you went into telesales. How did you get from doing that to inclusive companies?
Interesting, yeah. So, I found out what I was, and this is from my childhood as well. So I went through various foster homes and children's homes and various families, and I had to be almost like a chameleon. Blend in with whatever family, you know, code switching or whatever you want to call it. And so when I actually got into a job where, you know, I was doing sales, I just looked at, you know, what that person was doing, how I want to be spoken to, that salesperson, and I kind of adapted everything that I thought was really good in sales to sit there and go, I want to be like that. I love the way that person made me feel. I love this, that, and the other. So I kind of amalgamated it into my own little style. And then I started getting really good at what I was doing there, like so good. The person that took me under, that employed me at the time was like, I was their top salesperson. But I worked harder than everybody else at that point. Do you know what I mean? So while everybody else was messing around, if the boss wasn't in, I'm on the phones like ringing. And they was wondering why I'm getting twice or three times more sales than them. So I was, but that wasn't, and they were saying, you're so lucky, Paul. And I thought, no, you create your own luck. And that's what I realized at that point, like, your hard work will create your own luck. You can shirk whatever you want to do and you'll get average results. So anyway, the company that I was working for at the time, it wasn't paying any tax or national insurance for me for 3 years. And there wasn't promoting me or doing anything that I needed at that time, because I was getting a bit more confident in myself. I knew what I brought to the company, and there wasn't any kind of route where I was going. And when I found out they wasn't paying me tax and national insurance, I was like, oh dear me, that's terrible. So I went to an organisation called Equality Britain, which was called Ethnic Britain at that time. But again, when I went there, I came up with all these ideas of how they can change their business, they change their name, do all this kind of stuff, and it was owned by this guy who wasn't interested in D&I whatsoever. He was just making money from it, and that really bugged me. So then I thought to myself, do you know what? I'm going to go out there and do it myself. I've got enough confidence now. I'm going to sit there and make a difference in society. I know what that person's doing is not doing it right. I know that person's not doing it right. I'm just going to go out and do it myself and make a difference. So I got my little office, started again hammering the phone, did a wall planning for the first year, which is like just adverts of people's kind of stance on D&I. It was just a wall planner, and we sent that out. Got the dates wrong on the calendar, so the first calendar was like Christmas Day was on the wrong date, and all that, made the mistakes. But what I realised is, actually, I could run a business, I could do this, and within 6 months I had 2 staff, which was great. Do you know what I mean? I was like, okay, I'm ringing, managed to, get enough companies on board to sit there and start the business off, and then it kind of amalgamated from there. And as it went on, I wanted to do more initiatives and make a difference more in different areas. And I think my whole goal in kind of my career is, it's not about making money. It's about what impact can I have on society, and I want to work towards that. And then the byproduct of that is the success in getting staff and various other things from that. So yeah, that's kind of how I started my journey from telesales to going to do what I'm doing now.
It's such an interesting journey, and again, that theme of right and wrong. The guy you went to work for, you're like, you're just doing this for money, not for actually making a difference. So I'm going to go and do it myself. That lack of fear comes in. It's just like a bit of hard work. I'm just going to throw myself at it. And actually, all of the entrepreneurs I've spoken to, it's a very common theme. I'm just going to throw myself at it and work really hard. Because I think there is a definite characteristic of most entrepreneurs that you kind of have to be a little bit crazy to want to go and throw yourself at running your own business, right? Yeah. And then you've put into that the layer of, I want to do the right thing. I want to make a difference.
But the thing is, Sam, you think about my childhood though, and you get to a point where you just don't care anymore, so you've gone through these different situations, and by the time I got to adulthood, I was like, you know what, I just don't care. What have I got to lose? I've been through, there's nothing you could do to hurt me. There's nothing that you could say that would surprise me. So, so now I'm just like, yeah, okay, let's go ahead and do it and see where it gets me. It's either a lesson or a blessing. That's how I kind of see it. And if it doesn't work out, it's a lesson. If it does work out, it's a blessing.
I love that. I'm going to take that. It's a lesson or a blessing.
Yeah.
Okay. So my next question is, and I think you might have already talked to it, but it might be something else. What's the best decision you've ever made?
The National Diversity Awards. I'm so proud of it. Like, it's just, just wanting to. Coming from where I'm coming from, and there's a story behind the National Diversity Awards. I have told it before, but the guy that I was talking about that took me under his wing, he was a real huge influence in my life. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be sitting there doing what I'm doing now. And he was a guy called James Class, Sesay, radio DJ, this, that, and the other. He sadly passed away with cancer, just after I'd started my business, just before I did the National Diversity Awards, and we hold it in the Anglican Cathedral every single year. And so when he died, his funeral was at the Anglican Cathedral. And what I didn't realise, well, I did kind of, but not to the extent, and I know he didn't realise, is how many people he had influenced in his community. So, have you been to the Anglican Cathedral, haven't you, Sam?
Right. Yeah, because I've been to the awards.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it's one of the biggest cathedrals in Europe. Okay. And he filled that cathedral with well-wishers from the front to the back. There's people standing at the back of that long cathedral, wishing him well. And I know he didn't realise what impact he'd had, not only on me, but the whole plethora of people across different communities. And it just inspired me and said, well, we need to be telling people they are legends before it's too late. It really is. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, everybody's sitting there, oh, that person was really great. But they're already passed. Let's tell them now. Let's say you've helped me, you've done this. So we set the National Diversity Awards with that in mind, like to tell people, the voting system, to tell people whether they get shortlisted or not, that you are amazing. You have done things, do you know what I mean? Like you are making a difference to me and my community. And it started from there, and it just grew and grew and grew. Maybe James is looking down as well and making that shine. And you know, last year we had 90,000 nominations. We've got some of the HSBC is our headline sponsor. We've got some of the biggest sponsors and companies in the world that sponsor that awards, and really believed in my vision. Do you know what I mean? Of what it was, and I'm so proud of that. I think that's one thing that, you know, I'm so proud of, and I look back and think, wow, that's amazing.
And with good reason, because it is phenomenal, those awards, and the people that you recognise. As you say, it's recognising legends while they can know about it. And, you know, let them know what the impact they have on other people's lives. And I have a feeling there's probably lots of people who you've impacted that you don't know about as well. So in terms of advice, we all get lots of advice, wanted or not. What's the best piece of advice you've been given that you then completely ignored?
Well, that's such a difficult question. I mean, advice is, you know, I think it comes from certain people that don't think as visionary as I do. So, you know, sometimes when you think of initiative and they say, you know, don't run before you can walk. Do you know what I mean? You know, this is just too much, Paul. You know, I think you've just taken on too much, and I don't think you should do that. Although it's good advice, and I know it means well, I'm not going to take that advice. I really truly believe that, you know, the bigger that you dream, and if you go to walk towards them dreams or run towards them dreams, if you don't get there, you'll get somewhere close to that. I really do think that. So, you know, the best piece of advice is, you know, which is all well and good, which I'm never going to take, is, you know, that's just a bit too much more than you can chew. No, it should scare you. If you think of an idea, let it scare you. It should be scary, otherwise you're just motoring along, you know, just doing your thing every single day. I want to make a difference. I want to make an impact, and so that's the piece of advice I would say I've ignored.
I have to say, Paul, that doesn't surprise me in the slightest, having heard your story, especially your mission when you were in telesales, and, you know, everyone else is mucking around because the boss is away and you're there on the phones, because the idea of hard work doesn't scare you. So throwing yourself at something bigger, that makes complete sense, having listened to your story today. Yeah. So obviously the podcast is called A Beginner's Guide to Being a Grown-Up, and one day, hopefully, I'll take all of this advice and put it into a book. And if I did, what would be the piece of advice or the learn that you've had in your life that you would put in that guide? What's the one thing that you'd go, do you know what, this would be useful to anybody as they join adulthood?
I think, you know, your dreams are something very personal to you. Mm-hmm. And if you have a dream, my advice would be go for it. Do you know what I mean? You know, it really would. And people say, oh, well, I really dream of these big things. Well, yeah, that's good. But what I would advise you to do is take one step at a time towards that dream. So, for instance, if I thought of the National Diversity Awards, and I thought how big it would get, you know, I thought about every single component. I've talked myself out of it. It's going to cost you 100 grand, 200 grand to put on. And you've got to get these presenters, you've got to get these celebrities in, you've got to do all this. And you'd be like, no. So my advice to anybody that wants to go into an entrepreneurial kind of set or wants to do anything in their life is take one step at a time towards their dream, but actually make a start. And consider yourself to be a leader in that field as well. You know, you've got to convince yourself you are a leader in that field, and then you work towards that. And eventually, I feel that you will be, because your vision is that high that you will do it. And once you took one step, 2 steps, 3 steps, you know, by the time you get to like 40 steps, you look back and go, do you know what? I've took each step, and I've gone, look how far I've come now. I've come so far from where I was then. Do you know what I mean? So simplify it. Don't overthink it. Simplify it. Take one step at a time, and I guarantee not almost guarantee you will like the results from it. A lot of people don't, limit themselves so much, and they think, oh, I can't do that, I can't do this. Yes, you can. Absolutely, yes, you can. You've just got to change your mindset.
Yeah, it's that old adage, isn't it? Which is, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
precisely.
I love that as advice. I love the, dream big, throw yourself at your dream, but do it one step at a time.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to actually be successful, and it's the least scary way of doing it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if you're investing as well. There's lots of people that I just take like to the stock market. I know I'm going completely off piece here, but
That's all right.
but if
As long as you're not giving stock tips, we're fine.
No, I'm not definitely not doing that. But people like to go like the trading, day trading. It's investing. It's up and down. You're not going to lose money. But if you consolidate your kind of trading, long term, and you consolidate into one thing that is going to grow, it kind of goes a lot further than what you'd ever think. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People want quick money. People want quick things, and people want everything now. But you've got to build the foundations and build the building blocks first before you can go ahead and make a difference.
Amazing. And I think finishing on you saying make a difference is probably the most powerful place for us to end the podcast. So, Paul, thank you so much. I've known you a long time, and I didn't know all of your stories. So thank you for sharing that very personal story with us today and your insight. I know the listeners are going to love your story, and it will really resonate with a lot of people. So thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam, and I'm really looking forward to the book, and I will be the first person to buy that book, I promise you, because you are an inspiration as well, and you've always championed others. And I think I couldn't think of a better person to actually do this podcast, who's always looking out for others, even back then when you was doing the gender networks for the company that you work for. Yeah, thank you so much for what you do.
Amazing. Thanks, Paul. Thank you for listening to this episode of A Beginner's Guide to Being a Grown-Up. If you enjoyed it, please like, follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If there's someone who inspires you that you'd like me to interview, you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram and TikTok. In the meantime, enjoy being a grown-up.